gentlemen, at this time, if we can please direct your attention to the screens. Thank you.
It began with a fragile machine in the dunes of Kitty Hawk, but by 1947, the dream of flight was forged into the nation's ultimate shield. The United States Air Force was born. From the critical lifelines of the Berlin airlift to the dawn of jet-age combat over the skies of Korea, we proved that the skies belong to freedom. Through the grueling skies of Vietnam, air power evolved. Innovation forged heavier payloads, faster jets, and the unyielding resolve of the American airman. In Desert Storm, precision air power didn't just support the fight, it dismantled the enemy. During Operation Allied Force, stealth technology forever changed how wars are won. When terror struck, we hunted it in the shadows. For over 2 decades across Iraq and Afghanistan, air power delivered justice, precision, and overwatch to the troops below. And as the battlefield shifted, so did we.
With my signature today, you will witness the birth of the Space Force.
Through Operations Midnight Hammer and Absolute Resolve, 5th generation dominance shattered adversary networks with unprecedented lethality. 79 years of technological supremacy. 79 years of unbreakable courage. We are the United States Air and Space Forces. Fly and fix to deter, and if necessary, fight and win.
Good morning, Airmen and Guardians. How are you doing? No. We can do better than that. Good morning, Airmen and Guardians. How are you doing? All right. Hey, we've been starting off with a bang. I think I still have chills from that national anthem and then the drill team. But what we have next is even better. I'm Chief Master Sergeant Joshua Wiener, the USAFE Africa Command Chief, and I'm honored to be your moderator for today's panel. As you know, this forum always is a highlight of our Air Force Sergeants Association Professional Education and Development Symposium. And now is your opportunity to ask questions and receive perspective from our former Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force. These individuals do not always agree on issues, and they definitely don't hesitate to share their opinions. But that's what makes this session so fun, so informative, and so interesting. So it's my honor to introduce this prestigious panel of experienced, informed, and occasionally opinionated leaders. From San Juanito, Arizona, the 11th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, David Campanale. From Pensacola, Florida, the 12th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Eric Benken. From Mico, Texas, the 13th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Jim Finch. From Kings Mountain, North Carolina, the 14th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Gerald Murray. From Summerville, South Carolina, the 16th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Jim Roy. From San Antonio, La Cantarita, Texas, the 18th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Kaleth Wright. And from Chantilly, Virginia, the 19th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, JoAnne Bass. Ladies and gentlemen, your former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And we're already off script. While they do that. All right, so here are our rules of engagement for this forum. Each former chief will be asked to give opening comments. After their opening comments, we'll open the floor to questions from the audience. To ask a question, please go to one of these 3 microphones, and when recognized, identify yourself with your rank, your name, and the base you're from. When acknowledged, ask your question to 1, 2, or all of the chiefs. This forum is scheduled to go to 11 o'clock a.m., and the former Chief Master Sergeants of the Air Force will respond to questions until all are asked and answered, or our time expires. We'll begin with opening comments from left to right. The 11th Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Dave Campanale, your comments, please.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Morning. This is a great day, and I am incredibly excited to be here along with my bride, Lori. And sweetie, I want to thank you for joining me for the AFSA events and for the summit as well. I'm really so excited, and being at this end of the table is a little threatening sometimes because I remember we used to sit at the far end, but I'm so happy to be here with some incredible people and close friends. And so I look forward to your questions today, and have a great time.
Good morning, and likewise, very happy to be here with you and with my bride of 40 years. I met her 43 years ago at Eglin Air Force Base when the Air Force issued her to me. And I had taken her home to meet my mother, and mothers know best. And Mother told me, don't bother coming home next year if you don't bring her with you. So that was it. So anyway, look forward to the questions.
Good morning. It's great to be back with you guys, and for a lot of you, it's like old home week. Get a chance to spend some time with you. Thank you very much for your leadership in our Air Force. Pat and I are delighted to be here to share in the moment. That's what I like about coming to the AFSA and the summits every year, because it gets a chance to rekindle, to look at what's going on in our Air Force, and to see the great things that you do each and every day to take us down the road and make it a little bit better. As we move down the table, I realize there's a line of demarcation and stuff, and all of a sudden I find myself on the old guy's side. So it's, but it's nice to be with you. I look forward to your questions, and hope it's a fun time.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's great to be with old friends and new friends, to be able to spend this time with you. My bride, Sherry, sends her best. She is normally here, but she has her priorities in order because she's back home in North Carolina with 2 of our grandchildren. The reason that she's not with us here today. I really think the line of demarcation is here because even though it's 13 and 14, I'm actually older than Jim by 6 months. So here's where the, and 15 as well is. But it is great pleasure. Thank you very much. Thanks all of you that are continuing to serve at what you do. And again, what a pleasure to be with you. We look forward to your questions.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It certainly is good to be back again. I want to say a special thank you to AFSA and everything that you do, and the fact that you're putting this thing on again. And I look at the attendance this year versus years past, and it is continuing to grow. Keith, team, you guys have done a fantastic job. Let's give them a round of applause. Like I said, it is good to be back with you again. I'm with my special bride today, 16,082 days. We just celebrated just the other day. If you want to figure that up, it's 44 years. So it is good to be with Miss Paula again. And, you know, Miss Paula and I travel around a lot lately. We've retired. I call it retired. a third time. We've been out to a lot of your bases, and I get an opportunity to see your airmen in action, and I love watching that. So thank you again for the invite, and I look forward to your questions.
Good morning, teammates. It's always great to be here and to see so many of my old friends and colleagues, and I've already met a lot of new friends since I've been here. So I'm really looking forward to your questions, and let's have some fun today.
Good morning. Oh, y'all sounded sad on a Monday. Good morning. Hey, like the gentlemen here have said, thanks so much for your leadership. Really, thanks for a part of being the 1% of the folks who in our nation wear our nation's cloth. And so thanks for your leadership on that. Thanks to the AFSA leadership team who continues every year to continue to gather all of us together to sharpen our competitive advantage. So we look forward to spending time with you guys. Thanks for your leadership, and pass on our thanks to your family members as well.
All right, let's open it up to the audience for questions. It always just takes that first one to get it rolling. Who wants to be number one?
We got one.
All right.
Good morning, Chiefs. Staff Sergeant John Alt from Kirtland Air Force Base out of New Mexico. My question is, given the loss of soft power mechanisms such as USAID, in your measure, how might the U.S. maintain its non-confrontational means of global influence, and in what way is the DOW going to play its role?
I think we'll start with Chief Bass. We'll answer that one.
Thanks for the softball. Hey, he went right to it, y'all. We didn't even get a warm-up question. You know, I would say that we don't have a complete loss of soft power. We have to really exercise all of the tools and the resources that we have, and a lot of that is diplomacy. And so there is a lot of efforts going underway, and a lot of leaders at different echelons who are all focused on ensuring that we can continue to be a safe and prosperous nation, but more importantly, that we can lead on the world stage. And so despite perhaps some of the losses that we've seen across the government, there are still great initiatives that are happening within the State Department, within the DOW, et cetera. And then I'll pass it on to some of the other gentlemen since I bought y'all some time. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that round. A couple things. First of all, you know, again, not to question what USAID did, because I was out in a COCOM and I watched it. I'll just say it right up front. I'm glad they're gone. I'll say it. I'm glad they're gone. Our strength comes from you. Deterrence. That's where that comes from. Do we really need that soft capability? I think we have it through other means. And I think a lot of it has to do with what we're doing here in our own country. And so may not be the most popular view of it, but having experienced it firsthand in a COCOM, I say that you are the strength, you are the deterrent to keep those at will at the edge. So thank you for what you're doing today, each and every day.
Next question over here.
Master Sergeant Miles from McCord. I was wondering if you have any words of advice for people. So I'm at my 19-year mark. I'm a fourth-generation military member, first female in my family. But currently, my family is struggling with the idea of possibly going past 20 because of we have young children, we just PCS'd, and we've had issues with the child care, cost of living, and all that kind of stuff. So now we are at a crossroads. I would love to serve past 20, possibly become a chief, but it doesn't seem family friendly at this point.
So the first thing, you know, when we put together the service before self and your family side of that. That one of the best things we have that's been given to us really by the hard work of the Air Force Sergeants Association is a great retirement program. Now, it's not spectacular, but it's great. And the implications of you staying every year, as long as you feel you have the ability to serve and the desire to serve, you should seriously consider doing, because financially down the road, staying in another 2 years could mean tens of thousands of dollars to you for the rest of your lifetime. I did a little study, and if you're a master sergeant in the Air Force today and you stay for 26 years, and I'm a certified financial planner in my past life, and I've looked through all of those types of things. The master sergeant who serves for 26 years and lives a full life is going to earn in retirement $4 to $5 million. That's a lot of money for doing what you did. So keep those kind of things in mind, and I would offer you this. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm open to talking about it with you. But I would say it's a tough decision, but I understand, and it's a decision only you can make. And so I just wanted to show you the other side of that too, because that's going to be part of your family life going forward. Your retirement pay, and of course, TRICARE, and then TRICARE for life eventually.
I think we all had those crossroads. I remember when I was asked to be the command chief for 12th Air Force, and I sat down with my wife Johnny and our daughter Erica at the time was 3 years old, and I said, look, this is a team sport, and if you are willing to sign up to this, and me being gone, maybe up to 200 days a year or whatever, I said, then we'll do this. I said, but I really don't want to have that conversation again, So either we sign up or we don't. And of course she signed up and all of that. And then it led into USAFE and then ultimately into the Pentagon. So for my daughter's life, especially for those first 6, 7 years, I was with her less than half her life. And so, that weighs on you, a lot of the things that you miss. I remember there was one time that my wife called the Pentagon and she said, I want my husband home on March the 5th of 1997. And she says, I don't care about Christmas, I don't care about Thanksgiving or whatever, but I want him home on March the 7th of 1997. And it turned out to be my daughter's first communion. So that was her only ask in the entire time that we served. But as Chief Campanale said, it's a family decision. It's something that you have to do in your heart and make the right move. But I would definitely take him up on his offer and talk to him. He knows a lot of stuff. He's old.
Eric is older. He's older.
This is true. He's the old man in all of this.
He had his Medicare card before I
I agree. When by the time I was going over 20, went to Alaska, I'd made chief, and I thought that would be my last assignment. And at the time, I got kind of pulled into the command chief for the SEA command, and then command chief kind of business. We had teenagers and we had a first grader, and so we were trying to do the math, and quite frankly, there is life after active duty in the Air Force, right? So you got to figure out how to plan for that intentionally, and you can't do it. You can't wait till you're 20 years or 22 years and then all of a sudden decide I'm done and go on. That is not the way to approach that. As a family, you've got to figure out what your future would be and your best opportunity. When you hit 20, under the current rules, you have other choices. So you have some choices. All of that. Maybe it makes it easier. But as Chief Campanale said, the retirement in some cases goes exponentially a little higher beyond 20 and 30 as you go. But it all comes down to what it is. I think there's two parts to it. It's plan for your family, and then the other part of it is what you owe the Air Force to this thing is you should start preparing your replacement for whoever is going to replace you on the job you have on the first day you get into that job, because you're never going to be it. You're going to leave at some point. And whether you go retire or whether you go to another assignment. So I think what you owe them is to do your best while you're here and be part of the team, and then prepare the organization for your replacement so they can turn around and do something better.
I think that, I mean, there's no doubt all of us understand the sacrifices, you know, through our families, and there are two. I mean, both Chief Finch and also Chief Bass, you know, military, married to military, will understand that even more. You know, during my tenure there as Chief Master of the Air Force, and what we were looking at was, you know, the number of, you know, the sacrifices of military to military certainly is greater, and especially when there's children involved. And a lot of times the decision comes down, just like you're wrestling with, is that the one that makes the sacrifice more is typically the mother or the female there. And so what we were looking at is that, you know, to understand that, and so we did a study and to understand the promotion rates, and when, in fact, at the time, there were very few female Command Chief Master Sergeants, for example, in the force. And so what we did when we studied that is we found actually females were being promoted faster than their male counterparts, and yet their retirement was about 4 years earlier. So, you know, barely time and grade to be able to have the rank with it. So we reinforced joint spouse. We reinforced and certainly put an emphasis on child care and family care, you know, there. And I look around today and know and see the number of command chiefs, female chiefs that are leading our force, so it is improved, but it is still the same thing. So family care, extended care, you know, the things that you can do, and then trying to work assignments and all, but then it comes sometimes that it's just going to be the separation. And I know JoAnne down here, Chief Bass, being, you know, having a military spouse in a different service was even more of a challenge, and raising her daughter. So it'd be good to hear from Chief Bass on that. But again, thank you very much. It is a tough decision. Sherry and I made this, you know, learned a long time ago. Sometimes we serve in seasons. And in seasons, some seasons are tougher than other seasons. And we really did work extended care and family and friends to be able to help with the children, you know, through that time frame, because we had young children through as well. And our senior time that I was a senior master sergeant to being a chief and Chief Master of the Air Force. So thank you very much.
Any others? Next question. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Senior Airman Mitchell from JBSA Lackland. And first, thank you all for being here today. My question is, when did you know that you would be Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and what did choosing that decision mean for you personally?
I knew I was going to be Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force the morning of the interview. Well, actually, before the interview, I had decided in my mind that I was going to get the job, and I was going to do the best that I could during the interview. So I had the interview with General Goldfein, and when I walked out, you know, I told my wife at the time, like, hey, pack your bags because we're moving to D.C. And he didn't tell me until a week later, but I just kind of felt it. So it took me a long time to figure out. I mean, I wanted the opportunity. I didn't think I would get it, but once I got it, I decided that I was going to take advantage of it.
I'll jump on real quick because I was the opposite. I had an opportunity to serve at the Pentagon before I was Chief Master in the Air Force, and that job was extremely helpful in learning what I did not want to do. And so I had the opportunity to work for CMSAF Cody and this gentleman right here, and I remember telling folks all the time that I would never want to be the Chief Master in the Air Force. Like, thankless job, right? You know, no, you can't get everything right. Y'all love to share it on Airman NCO page, like all the things. And so I'll be honest, in our interview, our selection process from General C.Q. Brown was not, you know, a short one. It was pretty detailed, and at every point I thought I was on Chopped right? Like they were going to lift it anytime, and you never know. But I think when you do get an opportunity to serve in these positions, there's no greater privilege than to really have the ability to support and advocate for the over 600,000 airmen that we have.
I found out the morning that the United States of America took Manuel Noriega prisoner. And so we finished a busy day in the TACC, and General Fogelman called me in his office, and he talked about a few things, and he just said, oh, by the way, tomorrow there'll be a message that will tell you you're going to be Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. I just said, thank you. I ran downstairs, walked home, because we were going to have about 80 people over our house for dinner, and I had to get home to help out. He sent the elite guard after me and said, get back up here, and so I ran back. I said, okay, sir, what? And he said, did you hear what I said? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, what did I say? And I didn't really know what he said. So he said it again, and I just paused. I saluted, and I gave him a hug, and ran back home. And then I actually called him and said, well, how long do I have? And he said, you have to be there in 2 weeks. And so the first high that I had after that was the movers came 2 days afterwards to the house. And I wasn't paying too much attention to doing anything except packing stuff up. And the movers said, all of the movers on base want to come over and shake your hand. So I said, well, okay, all right. So that was more pizza that we had to order for all the movers. And about all the moving trucks that were on base that day, there were about 40 people that came over the house. So that was a lot of pizza. So I stopped. I felt obligated to say a few words. So I just asked, why did you guys all want to come over here and see me? And they said, we were all amazed that an enlisted person would have the same moving weight allowance as a four-star general. And I had no idea, but I remember it was like 17,500 pounds. Yeah, so that's how I found out. It was a great day, followed by a downer when we arrived at Andrews Air Force Base and checked into billeting. There was a big fruit basket there, but it was a little bit disheveled because somebody was already in the room. He came walking out in his underwear and said, are we sharing? So ups and downs.
I don't know if there's anyone that's going to want to follow that one.
Well, I interviewed with General Fogelman as well. I tried to talk Chief Campanale into staying longer than he did, and his advice to me, because I told him, I said, I'm not interested in being the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. I love what I'm doing. I'm over in USAFE. We're doing Bosnia and all that stuff, and I was having a good time. And his counsel to me was, Chief, you don't have a choice. He said, you're in the pool. He said, you're a MAGCOM command chief, and so you're in the pool. He said, you don't have a choice in this. So I said, all right. So we go to interview with General Fogelman. We had to leave our daughter in Europe, which made my wife, Johnny, very happy. And we get in with him, and we sit down. He says, Chief, why do you want to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force? And I said, sir, I'm not sure I want to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And he said, well, what's your agenda for the Air Force? And I said, sir, I don't have an agenda for the Air Force. And then I started thinking, if I keep this up, I'm not going to have a job in Europe anymore either. So he finally, he gets done talking to me, and then he talks to Johnny for like 10 minutes, and they talk about all kinds of stuff, and I'm sitting there taking a nap, and by the time it's over, we walk outside, and I told her, I said, if I get this frickin' job, it's your fault, you know? So to this day, she was selected to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. I just rode along.
I had the pleasure of being the Air Combat Command Chief for ACC for both of these tours over to my right. And so when it was time, when Chief Benken said he was announced that he's retiring, and the Air Force comes out and says, hey, we're going to nominate people for there, I wasn't overly surprised that my name was added to the to the bucket. I mean, it's like, if you're not going to pick me out of ACC, then what am I doing here, kind of thing. But I really didn't expect that I was going to get selected, because quite frankly, I thought I knew which competitor in this little circle of things was going to be the next Chief Master of the Air Force. So it really wasn't, you know, it's like I'll go through the motions, but I really wasn't expecting that was going to happen, unlike Kaleth. But when the short list came out, it was like, ruh-roh. All of a sudden, then I realized this may actually happen, and then it scared the crap out of me, because it was like, could I do that? I could do this job, because it was like ACC in a sense, but the expectation is the CMSAF is you're going to do this for life, and that was kind of a hard pill to swallow for a moment. But reality is, it is a lot more fun to be up here than it is to be at that table. Right? So the three phases of the Chief Master of the Air Force, the best phase is the moment you're selected and announced, because all they do is run around and congratulate you and say how great you are, but nobody expects anything out of you. And then when you get in the seat, then all of a sudden you're the scum of the earth for a while if you don't agree with the policies. But then once you retire, you're smart again. So it makes it a whole lot easier. And I couldn't wait to be at the end of the table so you could do this. And people would ask, when I was in the seat, how come Paul Airy and Sam Parrish, they come out here and tell it like it is, but whenever you give an answer, it's always politically correct. I said, because you don't actually expect them to do anything. I mean, if I say there's something wrong with the promotion system, you kind of think I'm going to fix it. Right? So, but they don't have to do anything. So it's a whole lot easier to be here than it is to be there. And so for Dave and for Danielle and for Chief Wolf, anyway, hats off to you while you're in the arena. So we look forward to having you up here one of these days.
Yeah, real quick, I mean, just like Chief Finch, I never really expected to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. I was honored to, and clearly to be even a major command chief at the time. I was actually the youngest in the command, position at the time for that. So if I was, the thought that if I could be, perhaps it might have been 15, not 14, like Chief Finch. But then there were 4 names on the short list, and when my name came out on the short list as the 4th one, and they misspelled my name, my wife says, "Do you think?" And I'm like, "No way, not me." All right, so number 4, and then the call came that now I'm on that list. I'm going to get the interview with the Chief of Staff. That was General John Jumper. So I go to the Pentagon, and I interview with him. My interview lasted 13 minutes and 1 question. And I'm like, so I come out of there after 13 minutes, and I called General Beggert, and I says, "Well, looks like you're stuck with me," and Chief Finch had let us know that we would get a call from the Chief of Staff on May the 26th, and I'm out in PACAF. At 7:26 in the morning on the 26th of May, General Jumper called and said, "Chief, John Jumper." "Yes, sir." He said, and I'm thinking, "Chief, thank you very much. I've selected so-and-so to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force." He called, he said, "Chief, I just called to ask." And my heart almost jumped out of my chest, because this conversation is not going the way that I thought it was going to go. But what an incredible honor, there in that selection in that time period, and then to make that transition. Interesting question, though, to follow yours, is that in one of these forums that we were asked the question, when did you think that you were qualified to be the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force? I said, now. After 4 years, let me go back and do it again. There'll be things that I would do differently, but thank you very much for the question, and it is an incredible honor to serve and to continue to be a part, because it is an assignment for life. We recognize that, so thank you.
Again, thank you for the question. Just kind of wrap it up. For Ms. Paula and I, we were out at United States Pacific Command, Combatant Command. Our name wasn't even thrown in the hat, at least we thought. I had a Admiral that I worked for Admiral Tim Keating, and Admiral Keating came to me and said, "Hey, I want to throw your name in the hat for this." And I said, what do you mean? That's not going to happen. And then fast forward that to I was getting ready to go out to one of our said countries in our theater of operation, and my staff kept telling me, "Hey, Chief, you need to stay back here and study." And I'm like, if I don't know it now, I'm never going to know it. I'll go ahead and go out. And of course, we went back to the Pentagon. I say we, Ms. Paul and I went back to the Pentagon for an interview, and And Miss Paula's taken a bunch of pictures, as she always does, but this particular time she's taken more pictures, taking pictures of this room and that room, and I'm like, what are you doing? She said, well, this will be the first and only time we ever get to the Pentagon. So I want to get pictures while we're here. And so when I actually found out was I was down at the Senior NCO Academy back when we had conferences down there, and I got a call from General Swartz that morning to tell me that I was, and I was completely shocked. Completely shocked. You know, like the others had said, do you ever know before you go into it? I mean, what's the likelihood of a person getting selected to be the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force? Pretty slim, pretty slim. As a young airman, do you know that going into it? No. You just be the best airman that you can be every single day. And you know, fortunately for me, and I'm assuming the rest of the folks up here have some great supervisors along the way that took care of you, not necessarily always putting their arms around you, but pushing you a little bit more than you ever expected to be pushed to do things that you didn't think were even capable. At least you weren't capable of doing, but they push you to the point where you learn from that. So. Yeah, absolutely. What an honor to be here, especially as a former Chief Master in the Air Force.
All right, thank you for the question. And we'll stay at this mic, and then we'll go over to the next.
Morning, Chiefs. I'm Senior Airman Clark from Anderson Air Force Base. My question is for all of you. What is something you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your career? Or something that you know in life that you know now that you maybe wish you would have known a little bit earlier. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I'll take it first. For me, and I have a pin up here. If you notice my pin, Military Family Institute. They're right out here. They're having their very first conference here at AFSA. Keith, thank you for allowing that to happen. It's called Ascent. Why am I pointing out family? For us, Miss Paula and I, we were married for 17 and a half years before we had these two little fellas, twins, and boy, did that change our lives. Talk about a significant emotional event. That changed our lives. What I realized in my leadership was I thought everybody worked as hard as I did and wanted to work as hard as I did every single day. It didn't, and had the same level of kind of family that I did. Miss Paula was a professional. She was a Department of the Air Force civilian, and it was work, work, work. Everything was about work. Everything was about what the mission was. And what I didn't realize was people have lives. People have families. And it's up to you as a leader to make sure you accommodate that, to make sure that you take care of them along the way so that they can take care of their family. Because if they do that, they're going to be a much better airman every single day. So for me, it's kind of simple.
Yeah, I'm the one person up here that ended my tenure without my family. So what I learned to answer your question, what I know now that I didn't know then is that you have to be as intentional about your family and the ones that love you as you are about your job and your Air Force career. I think the other thing that I learned is that there's more to all of us than your rank, your position, your Air Force career. It's a part of you, but it really shouldn't define you as much as I think the general public or the military, these titles define us. There's a lot more to everybody on this stage than what we did in our Air Force careers. And so I think for all of you, you probably should, if you haven't already, spend some time thinking about who am I beyond whatever rank or position that you serve, because this all ends someday, right? We come back here and we do other things for the Air Force, but at some point, your time in the uniform ends, and then you have to really look in the mirror and understand, who you really are. So don't allow your military career, position, rank, whatever, to define you, and be intentional about your family.
Hey, I'll tie into what number 18 said, and I would offer also, don't be transactional. right? Like, and I think that matters because when you're transactional, when you take off the uniform, you may not have that same community around you. And then a lesson that I learned a long time ago was never burn a bridge. Our Air Force is way too small, and you are going to come up and work with some of the same people sometime in your career, and if not, you will certainly see each other afterwards, so never burn a bridge. And then I just want to add one more thing, and it was on the question about, you know, the 18-year airman who asked, hey, I don't know if I want to stand beyond 20. I would also say another piece of advice is for those of us who have kiddos, I've learned never to miss the big stuff. Like, so I was that parent who oftentimes couldn't get to PTA meetings, couldn't see the kids anything, but I told the teachers, like, don't allow me to miss the big stuff. So however you can try to figure that out, make sure you don't miss that.
Great answers. We'll move to the center mic, please.
Good morning, Chiefs. Technical Sergeant Tuttle from the 344th Training Squadron out at San Antonio, Texas. My question for you is a 2025 MOAA report found that only 37% of military families would recommend military service, which is down from 55% in 2016. As the demands and requirements for new airmen and on our new airmen continue to rise, how do we address this growing gap and ensure our military families remain some of our strongest advocates for enlisted service?
Well, I think that's a great question, and there are many, many parts to that. First of all, I think is the nature of how war and conflict has changed. You know, we used to be a home force, basically. And when the Berlin Wall came down, all that changed. And we thought the Berlin Wall would come down, it'd be a good thing. And it was in many ways, but it also caused a lot of problems. And so part of those problems mandate the need for the United States Air Force. And I don't know what the stats are today. Chief Wolf can probably tell you, but typically, I know for many of us, they used to do a survey of how many countries the Air Force served in every year. And the number of countries changed. It would be like 198, 204, but it was around 200. And every year, for as long as I have known, after the Berlin Wall came down, the United States Air Force was doing business in every country in the world, except for maybe 5. And most of that was not as an act of war, it was an act of humanitarian work. And that's a lot of good work that we do. So knowing what you do may have an impact on that, and maybe folks don't see that because they just see the deployments and those types of things. The other thing is that this guy sitting down right here in this, and I know he's trying to hide it, in this Dallas cowboy outfit that he's wearing over here, and he does that to piss me off, but he represents the Air Force Sergeants Association. And we need more help for our families, and that is clear and evident. So when he goes to testify to Congress, and he says we have 75,000 people representing this association, that means a lot to a group of people who vote for appropriations to help families and to help people who need help. But when he stands up there and says 150,000, that makes a difference. And in today's age where the military is so omnipresent on the TV and everything we're doing, this is a key time for us to kick our membership in gear and raise it, because this guy will get us everything that we want for our families. So when you go back home, you recruit 10 people. You bring them to the Air Force Sergeants Association, and I think we do a pretty good job of it, but it's probably not good enough because we can get more, and that's where you can help start us off. Sound okay?
I'm going to say we, but you guys are in, so you have to do better. If families are deciding that they wouldn't recommend service, some of it is because we don't have the right policies in place. We're not taking care of them with respect to assignments. There's not enough child care. And some of it is probably the level of supervision and treatment, the things that they're dealing with on a regular basis as individuals and families. And so I think if you wanted to increase the percentage of people who would recommend the military, I think we all have to do better in taking care of the people that are already in. Chief, from his position, he can, put forth policies and guidance and all that good stuff like we all attempted to do. But, most people decide to stay in or get out. And I'm sure you've heard this, based on what's happening locally, based on how they're being treated in their unit and how they're being treated by their supervisor and flight chief. So I think that's where you can make the biggest difference in, improving that statistic that you talked about.
Yeah, to your point, it disturbs me to talk to a fellow veteran that says, I would not recommend, my child or my grandchild to serve in the military. Or it's not the military that I was in, but I don't like what I see to be able to do that. And then social media drives me friggin' nuts over that and some of the comments that are made. With it. And we see surveys, and right now, the survey says that the military is not as trusted as organization it was before, and it was said, both ways that, there are various reasons for that. The only thing I'd suggest to you, be the beacon of light. And what I mean be the beacon of light, go out in the public and make sure, and to especially starting with your family and friends and others there, because we're only in Chief Bass at 1% serving, but as 1%, you can make a difference by being that shining example of your professionalism of why you serve our nation. And so that's the part you can do, and we'll continue to do that because, look, I go into lots of debates, and I can tell you with any kind of time that I meet a veteran that says I would not recommend, I launch into why they should not be saying that. Why did they serve? And the need for soldiers, sailors, airmen, and guardians and Coast Guardsmen of why they serve our nation there. So but be the beacon of light and show people your professionalism, and that will spread.
We had that issue back in the mid-'90s when, you'd go around and you'd talk to a group of people. And I remember I was at Montgomery, I was at Maxwell Air Force Base, and I was talking to a group of airmen, and this tech sergeant stands up in the back of the room and he said, Chief, I wouldn't tell my son or daughter or niece or nephew to join the Air Force. And it shocked me. I thought, what the hell are you talking about? We got the greatest Air Force in the world and all of that. And then he went into, well, all of our benefits have eroded, our entitlements aren't what they used to be, and all of that stuff. And I made the comment, I said, well, that's not exactly true. Your benefits aren't eroding like you're describing. Well, the PA person puts in the letter or the headline, Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force says there is no erosion of benefits, period. That was it. And it was the shot heard around the world. And everybody people launched into me. I got letters from retirees and everything, and they said, you're full of crap, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I went to AFPC and I said, hey, give me all of our benefits and all of our entitlements and all of this stuff and compensation and everything, and let me take a look at it and do a little comparison with the outside world. And so when we did that, we started putting out what that pay and compensation was, then people started realizing that, hey, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. Because when I would go around the Air Force, if I had 500 people in a base theater, I would say, how many of you believe there's an erosion of benefits? Everybody raises their hand, gives me a dirty look and all that. And then I said, how many in this room can name for me 5 benefits? How many can name 5 entitlements? How many of you know the difference between a benefit and an entitlement? Nobody. Silence. So I think a lot of the stuff and a lot of these surveys depends on how you ask the question and a lot of those things. And then I think there is a misunderstanding about what life is on the outside versus what's on the inside. And I can tell you, this is a family. Our Air Force is a family, a very diverse family. And on the outside, a company doesn't really care. All they want is production. The bottom line is money. And the bottom line for us is something much more important.
Chiefs, it's 9:52. Would you like to take a comfort break or press on?
Are you good?
All right, press on it is. So we will go to the mic on the left, please.
We've trained our bladders over the years.
Good morning, Chief. Sergeant Davies out of the 82nd Training Wing, Shepherd Air Force Base. My question for you, of the decisions you made as Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, which one are you most proud of that airmen don't really know about, and which decision would you approach differently today?
You don't usually get credit for the things that you stop from happening. You get credit for the things that come on, and sometimes it's because of you, sometimes it's despite you. I think during my time frame, the things that I was most proud of was that we, not me, but we collectively as our team and my generation of all of this, try to take a look at deliberate development for the enlisted corps as a, so there was a developing aerospace leaders, and I remember someone coming down to me, it was from the general officers group, and saying, hey, I want to talk to you about DAL and how we can train strategic general officers about the enlisted force. I said, I thought you were coming down here to figure out how we could make the enlisted force better. So I really want DAL for the enlisted force. So I was really focused on that. But by and large, I think we were going through a recruiting issue, and there was some recruiting suggestions that were going on at the time that were good for recruiting but bad for the rest of the Air Force. And I remember going in there and standing up and saying, I don't think we should do this, when everybody else was going, yeah, we should do this, and it changed. But nobody ever knew what was going on at that point in time. So sometimes just stopping a bad thing from happening, you get no credit for it, but you just know in your heart that it's the right thing to do.
I don't have any decisions that I'm particularly proud of, but the one that I would approach differently is beards. I wasn't a fan, like most of us, I wasn't a fan of beard, shaving waivers, all that good stuff when I was in. But when I transitioned and I was presented with all of the research about beards and pseudofolliculitis and the gaps in promotions and opportunities for men who have shaving waivers, I actually changed my mind, and I would be a full supporter. Very unpopular opinion, but I would be a full supporter of every man being able to wear a beard. And I know that sounds, somewhere along the line, facial hair became synonymous with unprofessionalism and all these things, which is, unfortunate. But the science says that, and the leading dermatologists from all three of the services, said a long time ago that men should just be able to wear beards. I worked like number 12 in USAFE, and all of our counterparts, they wear beards, and there was, especially in NATO, there was nothing considered unprofessional about them. Do I think that the United States military will ever get there? No. To be perfectly honest, I don't. But I did change my mind, and I would approach that subject different, particularly after I spoke to a lot of young men and the trauma that, trying to maintain a shaved face when they have that particular disease condition. I would approach that a little bit different.
I would say you're living part of my decision today. When I first was selected to become the command chief, of course then it was Senior Enlisted Advisor to Military Airlift Command, Chief Finkston, who was CMSAF, asked me to come to Washington, D.C. and get a little orientation. And he asked me, he says, what things would you like to work on? And I said, we need more professional military education and education for our people. If you look at the career of a enlisted person at that time, the most PME you were going to get is leadership school, and that was it. The Senior NCO Academy wasn't designed for all of us. So an enlisted person would get approximately about 14 weeks of professional military education in a 20-year career. And at the same time, officers were getting about 2.5 years of professional military education in a 20-year career. So I talked to Chief Finkston about that, and he said, well, I tried that. It's not going to work. You can go over and talk to the chief of PME. I said, okay, thank you. So I found my way to the chief of PME, and his name was Jim Lokovic. And I told Jim what I thought would work, and Jim was very, very kind. He spent a lot of time with me, laid out what they had tried before, but it just wasn't feasible at the time for money reasons and all of those types of things. But typically, anytime anybody wants to say no, the first reason they're going to give you is money, and I thought that was BS. So time goes on, and we live through that, and nothing changes, and I become Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. On day 5, I had a bunch of appointments with a lot of the 2 digits in the Pentagon. I canceled them, and I went over to the Air Force Sergeants Association. And lo and behold, Jim Lokovic is right there. And I said, we need to do some professional military education, and I need AFSA's help. And in 1995, we held the first, then we just called it was just the First Sergeants Conference. So we had First Sergeants, we had PME instructors, we had people working FTAC, and all that kind of stuff came. And the Air Force Sergeants Association, which had just hosted just a few days of awards and all that kind of stuff, all of a sudden was hosting a week, and we had thousands of people there. First location was Dearborn, Michigan, and it's grown ever since. And so now, in a way, because of that effort that I thought would work, and the Air Force Sergeants Association made happen, and the help of 2 incredible chiefs to my left, we made this work. And this is part of your professional military education. And I think Kaleth wrote something and probably said something many times. And Kaleth, you talked about this is the ultimate professional development seminar. What were the words you used? Could you express those to the folks and tell them what you said?
I think I just mentioned that this was the ultimate professional development opportunity for enlisted airmen that we don't typically get with AFA and some of the other conferences.
Yeah. So. And so there's 2 decades between me and Kaleth at CMSAF. But, I mean, you still see that it is lived on, and you're making that happen today. So I would say that would be the thing that I did that means the most. I just thought it was more appropriate to talk about that today than anything else.
I know every one of us, took the mantle of developing, future leaders there. And Chief Finch spoke about developing aerospace leaders, which was an initiative among the officers, general officers, of how to develop, better general officers to the future. And Chief Finch had the foresight to be able to put a chief in that group that took from that. And so to be able to, I picked up the mantle then from the Chief Finch. And to take some initiatives out of that, and so working on professional development was one of the things that I took great pride in, and we took several initiatives. We moved the Chiefs Group out of AFPC and moved it to Washington to the same general officer matters that started higher education in various ways for Chief Master Sergeants. I led for a study on Chief Master Sergeants in the Air Force and moved 250 billets out of higher headquarters and special duties and replaced them with senior master sergeants, master sergeants, and down even to staff sergeants where chiefs had been, and that added to the development aspect of that as well. The other side of that, though, is that through the recruiting problems that we had in the late 90s, and then the surge of patriotism that keeping people in after 9/11, by the time we got into 2003 and 4, we had a significant imbalance in the force, imbalances in rank, imbalances of AFSCs. And so I pushed to have NCO retraining reestablished because we had stopped NCO retraining. That set up imbalances in the force. And the other is I pushed personnel to start skimming stripes. I did away with chronic critical career fields because we were pulling, stripes, promotions out of some career fields that were that because they weren't identified as critical, we were pulling them out and we were setting them into balance. So we stopped that and we started moving some promotions out of some AFSCs into other AFSCs. And it took a period of time, but by the time I left, we had a better balance force and so that by doing those steps are some of the best things that I thought that I did during my tenure that a lot of people didn't know that the work we were doing.
One of the things that I would highlight is, actually they're sitting in this room today, the idea of joint coalition operations. Obviously during my time we were right in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan wars. I was hired specifically as a combatant command senior enlisted leader by General Swartz because he wanted focus on that particular type of operation. And today, an example, we have Jake Simmons here from Air Force Space Command, Space Command Operations Center, operations. And Jake, I've known Jake when he wore an Air Force name tag, and Jake is a warrior. I mean, he's in the right seat. And right next to him is John Storms. John is at Northcom and doing the mission. And it's the point here is very simple. The point is it's okay to jump out into the joint environment. It's actually good to jump out to the joint environment. It's good to come with our Air Force background, our space background, and to jump in to that joint environment. Admiral Tim Keating used to tell me all the time, I want you to give me uncandid Air Force opinion on these things. I know how to be a sailor. I don't need to be told what type of sailor operations, but I need your opinion, your basis of air. And for me, that said an awful lot about his type of leadership, that he would allow somebody like myself to provide that. But what I'm telling you is it's okay to jump to the joint environment and give the air and space feedback. It's good to do that. We have two leaders here, two very solid leaders that are doing that every single day with their combatant command, the warfighter out there fighting the wars today. Remember, we're an organized, trained, equipped United States Air Force. We provide forces to these joint operations. That's okay. That's what we do. So, that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's fact.
I think one of the most important legacies, and it wasn't mine, but it happened during my watch. It was our boss, General Ron Fogelman, who gave us our core values. And up until that time, we had not codified our core values. And growing up in the military, we came in 1970. And growing up in the military, we always had values, and we always knew the difference between right and wrong and all of that. But there was no codification of our core values. Somebody along the line, I think it might have been General McPeak, threw out the idea of something like 7 core values or whatever, but it never really gained traction. And then General Fogelman, based on 2 years of our Air Force going through some really bad and tragic incidents, a Black Hawk shoot down, a B-52 crash, and then the crash of Secretary of Commerce Ron Brown that killed 35 people in USAFE. We killed 65 people in 2 years, and we were doing a lot of bad things. And he realized when he started reviewing all of that we had let our standards down and that we had an erosion of our standards and our discipline and all of that. And if you look at aircraft crashes, typically you'll find the same verbiage in why did this accident happen. And it has to do with a lack of standards and discipline and taking your eye off the ball when you're doing things. And so he very much understood that the Air Force has a soul and a spirit. And when you realize that soul and spirit is off track, you have to do something about it. And a lot of times that's getting back to fundamentals. It's getting back to standards, and it's getting back to discipline. Reminding ourselves that we're not individuals. This is about a team. And so I think that was probably in my tenure the most important thing that ever happened was our core values. So.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the mic on the right over here.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chiefs. My question/statement is for you, Chief Wright. I apologize. I'm former Senior Airman Johnson. I just got out from Little Rock Air Force Base. a long time ago, I joined in 2017 when you first started, and I got kicked out. I was in Medhold, and you came over at Lackland to see the students over, or the trainees over there, and just kind of encourage us. And I was real teary-eyed, so you probably don't recognize my face because I'm not crying now. But you basically, you were telling us if this is for us, then it's for us, right? And even if we got sent home, that if this is for us, we would come back, right? And you asked what my job was. I said I was a linguist. And you say, if you're smart enough to be a linguist, girl, you're smart enough to figure out how to come back, right? And I'm like, all right, cool, I can do this. So I got sent home, cried the entire flight home. I'm pretty sure my person next to me was livid. And in the 2 years that I was at home, well, 1.5 years that I was at home, I continuously reminded myself, if it's for me, I'm gonna go back and get it, right? And I came back, and I was successful. I unfortunately didn't become a linguist, though. I was a contract specialist. But I came back, and it was because of you. And so I just want to say I appreciate that. And my question, though, is can you share something for people who, similar to what the tech sergeant had asked, people who are discouraged from encouraging other people to join, and or people who are like watching the lives who are considering joining the Air Force or any branch. Can you share something that would encourage them to go ahead and take that leap, or encourage people to come back? Because it definitely helped me, and I ended up turning out pretty great, not to toot my own horn. So yeah.
Well, first, thank you for the kind words, and congratulations on the career that you came back to. I'll maybe refer back to the original statement. If it's for you, then you'll find your way back to it. But I also recognize that serving in the military is actually not for everyone. And while we would like to encourage everybody to, be a part of the military, there's, I think, probably lots of reasons why somebody, there's other things that you can do in life. There's other things in life, other ways to serve in, in medicine and nonprofits. There's other things that I think you can do that will have a significant contribution on our society. And I think sometimes you have to be okay with that, right? I have 3 children. None of them decided to serve, but they're all very productive and doing things in the community, and I think that's okay. So when it comes to life in general, but I think the most encouraging thing that I could tell someone, I don't know if this is encouraging, but maybe the most important thing I could tell someone is, the people in life who thrive they learn to adapt to the environment they're in. And sometimes their environment is warming and comforting and it's in your favor, and then there are other times when it's not. But either way, I think you have to be able to adapt to the environment that you're in if you want to be successful in life, if you want to thrive in life. And motivation is fleeting. I used to be a big motivator, motivational speeches and all this other stuff. You can do it, you can do it. But that's fleeting. That only lasts a certain amount of time. And so I'm not necessarily a huge fan of, hey, you can do it, because the reality is sometimes you actually can't do it, right? And you don't want to do it, you don't need to do it. But helping people become more adaptable to whatever the environment they're in, I think is what I would encourage you to do for the people that are in your circle or that need that type of encouragement or motivation from somebody like yourself. And also share your story. And I know it's not always appreciated in military circles, but the last thing I think you mentioned was, I'm not going to toot my own horn. Man, toot that thing. right? Sometimes you got to be comfortable with the successes that you have, and people need to hear about, you know, your story and how you ultimately became a success, because that can be more encouraging than you can do it. So toot your horn.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'll go to the center mic, please.
Good morning, Chiefs. I am Staff Sergeant Lopez Gary, a current instructor at the Gateway of the Air Force, Lackland Air Force Base, and the 344 Training Squadron, right over there on my left. One of the questions that I have for you, I started as a technical training instructor in October 2024, and currently I'm on my 11th class of material managers, my current AFSC. And one thing that many of my students, they like to ask me, and that thing that keeps them moving, is the amount of questions that they have sometimes. Sometimes a little overwhelming, but because that speaks of the flame, that spirit that they have right now after basic training to know everything. Sometimes they feel the strongest persons in the room, but also sometimes their spirit can be fragile by the fear of uncertainty. So my question to many generations of chiefs, what qualities kept you strong? Just like Chief Wright said shorter, where motivation can last so long. What qualities would you like me to pass on to the newest students that I'm currently teaching, and for the ones to come, that helped you throughout your entire career from BMT all the way to Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force? Thank you for your time.
Everybody looks at me. All right. Hey, great question, and one I think that all of us would have an opinion on. I think one of the things that I share with people is probably most important is mindset, right? Like, you determine what your mindset's going to be, and you determine what framework that's going to look like. And so I learned early on through my Army husband, you know, that I need to play the long game, and I need to not make decisions based off how I feel and emotion. And so I learned to create a framework of mindset where instead of looking at challenges and or obstacles, I look at them as opportunities. And so everything that every single one of you is going through is just a setup for the next thing. And so mindset is what I would say.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a staff sergeant. It was 1980, doing a hardship tour at Hickam Air Force Base, Hawaii. And I started thinking about what's ahead for me. I had 8 years in the service. And on that day, I put together what I would now call a business plan for myself. Goals and objectives for the year ahead. And I kept doing that even to this very day. And it helped me in business as well. And what it did is, in times of a little bit of discouragement or things would get down, I could always refer back to that and do what I call stay the course. Stay focused on when your thoughts were clear, and you could put something down on a piece of paper, and it would help you in times when it was a little bit more challenging, where your response might be a little bit more emotional and not factual. And it helped me kind of stay the course. And I encourage everybody to put together a little business plan for themselves for the following year, and use that, refer back to that to help you in times of uncertainty. And I think that would help.
I think sometimes what holds people back isn't the fear of getting it wrong, it's the fear of failure. In other words, we're more worried about getting it wrong than getting it right. And, you know, so we don't do anything. We stop because we don't take that first step. And I think all of us as a group sometimes got to really step back and say, what do we do to give people the confidence to take the step to do something? Because, I mean, if you do nothing, then you don't go anywhere. But if you take the first step and it's the wrong step, you just take another step and get back on the same path. And in today's environment, everybody expects an answer to everything, just like you have a smartphone. You have a question now, you just pull up your smartphone and get an answer. And the unintended consequence of that is that everybody thinks that every issue, every question should be able to be responded and fixed on the spot, and that just doesn't work that way in life. So I think just giving people the right expectations and encouragement so that they can actually go forth and do stuff. I think that's probably the better area you can get to help tomorrow.
I think about you and what you do as an instructor. So instruct, teach, be clear, set expectations, and hold them accountable during the time frame that you have them. But the other part to that is to be sincere and show you care. And when you show you care about them and what their needs are, but the other side of that is that while you have them, be the instructor, set the example for them and all. And then once you turn them loose, they'll remember you, and they'll remember you more for you caring about them than anything else.
Next question, we'll go over to the left, please. Thank you.
Good morning, Chiefs. Staff Sergeant Jason Durr from 60th OSS Travis Air Force Base. My question for you is a little bit for myself. I met my spouse as of 2 years ago, and as of 11 months ago yesterday was my daughter's 11-month birthday. She is Army Reserve, and as of now, since we've been together, she's had to transfer units while I PCS to Travis. She has yet to do anything with her new unit due to their transfer. And my question is, how do a military spouse family that aren't married across branches navigate PME and professional development for our careers together in an era where it's highly encouraged to be a married couple, as that would make it easier for a lot of our career?
Well, everybody's looking at me again. So Ron and I will be celebrating our 30th anniversary next year. And it's not easy. Here's some fundamental truths, right? Even before we got married, you already know that if you marry within the military, it's going to be tough, right? If you marry within the services don't have to do, whatever they need to do to try to keep you together. But what I've learned is, by and large, most assignment managers across any branch does want to try to work that out in terms of getting you all stationed together. I would encourage you to make sure that you're reaching out to your assignment handlers, especially on the Army side. Typically, the Air Force side will try to work with those Army assignment handlers to try to help figure that out. In terms of your second part on how do you balance PME, life, all the other things, it's one assignment at a time, right? There were times where my career was going fast and I had PME things that I need to do or I had deployments and my husband Ron, who served 27 years in the Army, 5 one-year deployments, lots of PME, all the things. We had to balance out our entire family situation to ensure that we could do it, but we also knew that every assignment was not given. We weren't entitled to it. It was a decision of re-enlistment that we had to make as a family to figure that out. But first step, I think, make sure you know your assignment managers, make sure your assignment managers know each other, and try to work those things out and have the family discussion ahead of time in the same way that we mission plan for operations that are happening. Our family would mission plan and say, hey, who's going to college over the next few years? Hey, who's got deployments that are happening? Who's doing what? Who's picking up the kids from the CDC? We've left our kids at the CDC. How many of y'all have done that before? Okay, so you can relate. But it's one assignment at a time, reach out and talk to somebody else who's in that situation. But if we can do it for 30 years, you can too.
We'll go over here on the right, please.
Good morning, Chiefs. I'm Staff Sergeant Jim from Anderson Air Force Base, 36 Main Squadron. My question is, do you believe Air Force has become too hesitant to hold the people accountable without out of the fear of negatively infecting career? If so, how do we rebuild accountability while allowing airmen to make the mistake and grow?
Well, I was taught by Sergeant Worley, my TI, back in 1970, that discipline, standards, and teamwork are the three essentials to leadership and the three essentials to growing as an airman. I didn't recognize that. I was 18 years old. All I wanted to do was survive basic training at the time. But I started thinking about that as I grew through the Air Force, and I realized that if I applied discipline to everything that I did, and if I kept my standard bar, high, that there's a chance I might be successful. And if I always focused on the team and not myself, that the team would be successful. And I think those are the basic and fundamentals of leadership. And I think that we've proven that over the years. To me, 362903 is a suggestion, okay? I make no apologies for it. I'm very much a standards guy. If you would have walked into my office with your hands in your pockets in uniform, I would have eaten your liver with some fava beans and a fine Chianti. If you'd have came into my office with a walrus mustache, we'd have had another conversation. Anyway, discipline, standards, and teamwork to me. And then, you hold your people accountable. And if you set the standard bar here, your people will rise to that level. If you let the standard bar get down here, that's as far as they'll go. We prove it time and time again.
We don't know. I've been out 6 years. I don't know what supervisors are doing, if they're afraid to hold people accountable. And I mean, I'm assuming that most of us are in the same position. So that's really up to you guys to decide if that's the case. I think if that was a real issue, then there would likely be evidence to suggest, more accidents, more indicators that people aren't being held accountable. And so if those indicators aren't present, then just like at any point in history, you have supervisors who are really tough, you have some that are really soft, and most of us are probably somewhere in between when it comes to holding people accountable.
Thank you. We'll go to the center mic, please.
Good morning, Chiefs. I am Staff Sergeant Ashley Graham from the 344th Training Squadron at Lackland Air Force Base. And my question is, now that we are in the digital age of things, for example, the influence of social media, did public opinion gauge your decision-making while being Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and was it beneficial?
Well, I thank God I didn't have to deal with social media during my time frame. Public opinion, really did not, shape, and I say public opinion, and certainly I was never one that considered popularity or anything, and it was, and sometimes as Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and just like now, is that, people might call, you're a rock star, or something like that, and, and not to let that go to our head in any way. But, it is interesting now that, and believe me, I read a lot of social media. I don't interact on social media, but I at least try to be observant of it and all. And, to the point to where, I let that be, you put a filter on. And even back in the day, I mean, with email that we had and in dealing with, various public means of media and things that we did in that time frame, is that you have to take, and sometimes I look at it as you got to filter, and you got to filter information, and sometimes you got to dial that filter and tweak it really hard, and other things. But you've got to keep a filter that allows information to come in, to be able to take that information, process that to help you make decisions. And so, certainly getting a feel, and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, as he, and when Chief Bass, as she went around, then she has to take and make an assessment of the feedback that she's getting and that he's getting, to be able to help him in crafting messaging, crafting the decisions he makes of what he thinks is priority. And that's kind of the way I see social media today and all the information. And you have a plethora of information that you have to work through, but filter that to try to get to those things of why that public opinion, as you say, or why, things that, you're getting will help you to make the right decisions of whatever environment or whatever the actions that you're taking. It was the same before social media, and it's just now that, you got to be able to take that, make an assessment, with that, get to the truth or what's the right decision and move forward with it.
Okay, so in addition to what number 14 said, what I would say is we are in the information age. I could spend, probably an hour talking about the challenges of this information age that we live in. We live in an age where he who puts the information out first wins, whether it's truth or not. And so we've got to learn how to operate in that. Public opinion never swayed decisions, but it was a data point. And so just as 14 talks about, you filter through that data point, you pay attention because it also provides a sense of the pulse of the force, but realizing that it's only a segment or population of the force depending on where you're getting that information. So I think it's helpful for leaders to see what's going on out there. The information age and digital domain is not going away. We have to understand how to capitalize and use it for the benefit of all of us, and understand the challenges that we have with it, but it's a good data point for all of us as leaders.
Sometimes it's hard to know what to believe. I mean, I never chased the, we didn't have to worry about chasing likes, and being constantly affirmation and that what I did was a good decision and people liked me for it. At the end, the exit interview, when I came out, they said, how did the chiefs and how did the general officers and colonels like you? I said, I don't think people liked or didn't like me. And I really wasn't worried about that. I think ultimately is if people agreed with the decision I made, then I was the smartest guy around. But if they didn't like the decision that I made relative to what was going on in the Air Force, then I was, again, the scum of the earth. And so if you started reading when I started reading the Air Force Times, I go, my God, it's like people were saying he had a lobotomy when he came to the Pentagon. He used to be a good guy. And so I think you got to put all of those things in perspective in the social media. But I just don't get hung up on all of that. And if you're just choosing it for likes, and then it can get you off track. And quite frankly, what I see on social media today are people who take one issue and they take a spin off of this thing with one or two facts out of context and then go out and post it and see if anybody else will agree with them, which you always find somebody who will agree, but you don't have the full set of facts to deal with it, and so it gives you really twisted in terms of the views. So it's a hard time. I know Chief Bass, before she ever put a policy out, there'd be somebody out there 15 minutes later, they'd be out here trying to figure out how to tear it apart because it wasn't the 100% solution, it was 99%, but by God, she's going to get damned for the 1% that didn't work out that way.
Thank you. We'll go to the far left, please.
Hello, I'm Staff Sergeant Wilshire from the 45th Test Squadron at Eglin Air Force Base. So you touched a little bit based on retentions and burnout. I'm a little bit curious about another layer of that. So how do we address situations where unconscious bias, differences in opportunity, recognition, or workplace culture may cause certain airmen to feel like they have to constantly overperform in order to be recognized or put up for different opportunities? When those airmen eventually burn out and separate, we're not only losing high-performing airmen, but also their experience and intuitional knowledge. What can leaders do to recognize and address those disparities before we lose those airmen? Thank you.
Don't jump at once, y'all. Hey, I love the question. I love the fact that y'all aren't throwing us any easy. These are like 5 o'clock questions, by the way, so maybe we'll connect at 5 o'clock by the bar. Hey, ginger beer for me, y'all. Hey, you know what I would say is the one thing that I love about our military is nobody develops talent, nobody trains and educates the way the United States military does. You can work for Google, IBM, Apple, Lowe's, Home Depot. Nobody has the same level of training and education. And so I don't know about you, but it starts with Chad Bickley and Caleb Vaden's team at basic training and tech training, where we start to teach the core values and the competencies and the the discipline that we expect of all of our airmen, and that the default is that we treat each other with dignity and respect, and we value and create environments where all of our folks can thrive. So the framework is there, the training and education is there, the challenge is the people piece. And it's people who execute those things. And so, you know, as we grow our leadership chain, that goes back to the question on accountability. How do we hold ourselves accountable to the framework that the service is teaching you, which is we learn about unconscious bias so that we can level set and create environments where people can thrive. Like that's the goodness of where we've got to be, but when people are involved, you're always going to have challenges. I would encourage you, again, play the long game. Don't make decisions based on frontline supervision or how you feel or what's happening there. If you know what's right, don't allow an obstacle to push you out or create the burnout or anything like that, but you know what right looks like, and make sure that you create the environment so that all you and your teammates can thrive.
I'm going to say it louder for the people in the back. We have to do better. I think deep down in all of our souls, we know that diversity, equity, inclusion, access is valuable, it's needed. It makes a difference. It's made a difference in our Air Force for a long time. The elimination of DEI makes it very, very difficult. What Joe is saying, you can be as strong as you want to be, but if you're a woman, if you're a minority, and you don't get the same opportunities, there's not intentionality in those opportunities, all of the motivation, encouragement, you know. The reality is, I talked about adaptability earlier. Yeah, you have to adapt to your environment, but it makes it difficult. And so I think for all of us in the room that are leaders, I think you have to figure out a way to make sure that people from all walks of life feel valued, whether the administration, the department, whatever, regardless of what the policies are. And I think we all have to acknowledge and recognize that that's not easy. There's no easy answer here. This is a tough time, I think, to serve in the military and deal with what you mentioned, the burnout from not having a sense of belonging, right? Tough topic. I know it's difficult and maybe not for you, things that you're not supposed to talk about, but not talking about it makes it even more difficult for people who fall in those categories. So tough topic.
Come over here to the right, please.
Good morning. Senior Airman Saliva. I am a 1 Charlie 3, Command and Control Operations, and this is my question. If another major conflict began tomorrow, what concerns you most about the readiness of our enlisted force?
You know, I don't actually have a concern about the readiness of the enlisted force. I have a concern about our supply chain and you know, those types of things. I think the force is ready. We do a good job of preparing the force, starting in basic training, tech training, and all the readiness exercises that we do. I think our service members will continue to deliver, but there's some challenges strategically that we face that I'm most concerned with, and what that's going to require then is for us to tap into the innovation of every single one of you to help us figure out some of these strategic challenges that we have to be able to get after it. But I actually sleep well at night knowing that if something popped off in the Pacific or Africa Theater or wherever it is, you guys are going to do what you need to do to kick some ass.
All right, we'll move on to the center mic, please.
Good morning. I'm Staff Sergeant Kiara Hales. I'm from Anderson Air Force Base, and I'm glad to be back in my home city for a bit with my family. My question to each of you is, what advice would you give to us as leaders in regards to balancing being a people person for our airmen and supporting them versus keeping them mission-focused when it comes to specifically them being undermanned and having, you know, what is it called? An influx of work, if you will.
There's always seems to be a mismatch between resources and tasks. And so people, it's common to say just do more with less, but in reality, you do less with less. The trick, I think, as a leader is to figure out how to push back and to prioritize the things that you can do. So if you have people and you have tasks, you know what they can accomplish. And so if someone asks something else of you, you got to figure out, when I do this, if this is more important, what am I going to give up over here? And I think that's the buffer that you do as a leader, is to work within the lane that you have, to work with the leadership to say they need to know, as the people above you in all of this, the pain level that we're going to face if we choose to do more or whatever it happens to be. But you know the capabilities of your people and what the mission is that you've got in the lane that you have. You just got to give your people a chance to do their job, and then advocate for them to the leadership that comes in, and hope that we'll continue to move forward as you go. That's best you can do, I think.
Come over to the mic on the left, please.
Good morning. I'm excited. This is my first AFSA convention. But I would like to ask all of you, would you be willing to share a personal story from your career where you had to demonstrate resilience? What helped you push through that difficult season and keep moving forward?
What was the end of that question?
I'll start it off. Let me start off by saying, you know, one of the hardest things I found being the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force was to go to Dover at Port Mortuary Fair to visit with the family members of the fallen. You know, the different stages of grieving that they are going through. How do you relate to them? How do you talk with them? You know, in a caring and passionate way. For me, I still kind of reflect back on that at times. That was very difficult, and it's still difficult today because whether directly or indirectly, I know I had a part in making sure that those airmen that went out the door to those different locations, I had a part in making sure that they were prepared. And did I do it properly? Did I make sure that they had everything that they needed? Did they have the right training? Did they have the right equipment? And were they prepared to go? Did they make the right decisions? You know, we talk about professional development, and we always think of this, you know, this idea that it's all about leadership. It's not all about leadership. It's about technical capability as well. Did I make sure that they had the right technical capability to go out the door to fight the enemy, to protect themselves? And I always reflect back on that. And every time I think about when I went to Dover, and it's hard, it's difficult, and I still reflect back on that today.
So for me, I mentioned earlier, one of the things I did is I always had my little piece of paper I could pull out and kind of look at, and to help me stay on track. But the real thing that would help me in times when I had to push through is there were two things that I did specifically. The first one was I went over and spent time with the United States Air Force Honor Guard. And I just hung out with them, chit-chat with them, toss around a few rifles, do some PT. And the other thing I would do is at the time I was chief, Father Sam Thomas was the first Catholic chief of chaplains. And so I would spend some time with Father Sam, and then a young captain whom we met in South Korea, Captain Tim Butler. And so to have faith and to have someone to talk with in those times to help push you through. And it's really not for yourself. It's just that sometimes I just felt that, geez, I want to do more and I want to help people if someone had lost their life or there was a suicide or something like that, something had happened in the Air Force that day that made me feel just a little bit insignificant and helpless to be able to help somebody. I could always get some balance from looking at my little sheet and spending time with the Honor Guard or reaching out to our Air Force Chief of Chaplains and our own priest at Andrews Air Force Base. So faith helps carry you through sometimes.
We talk all the time about resiliency and, you know, the mental part of that, physical part of that and everything. One of the endeavors that Chief Wolf is working on right now has to do with financial readiness. And one of the causes when we do autopsies, and we went through this when we were in the Pentagon, when you do an autopsy on a suicide, you'll find a lot of times that it has to do with financial readiness that causes strains in the marriage or whatever. And we have a void of financial education among our airmen. And not only does it affect suicides, but it also affects security clearances. We have a lot of people that can't be deployed because they're in financial distress, et cetera. So one of the things that you need to do as leaders is make sure that financial distress is something that somebody can come and get help with. You know, just like if they have a mental issue and they need help with it, they go to somebody and they get help with that. Same thing with financial readiness. You know, we need to do that. So I would solicit your help, you know, at the base level or whatever, as these programs start to roll out on how we're going to address financial readiness and make that a key part of resiliency within our Air Force.
All right, this panel has been amazing so far, and 11 o'clock is fast approaching, so we'll have one last comment or question from the audience, and then we'll give some time for closing comments. So on the far right here, please.
Morning, Chiefs. Staff Sergeant Evans at Herbert, 823rd Red Horse Squadron. My question for you guys are, with the experience, knowledge, and time that you serve pertaining to longevity, what would be one piece of essential advice that you give to the young airmen and NCOs serving now?
To the horse.
Yes, sir.
As another horseman. Done that, been there, done that, and it's a tough job, and thank you for doing that. I would say, you know, I said it earlier, and I really mean it. I don't say it to be trite about it, but be the absolute best airman that you can be. You know, it starts at the foundation. You know, we talk about core values and all this, and it's true. It starts. That's the foundation. For you as a young enlisted airman, or them as a young enlisted airman, they got to be the absolute best technician that they can possibly be. If you ask me who the best dirt boy is, you're looking at him. What AFSC are you?
Structures, 3-3.
So who's the best nail bender, you know?
Me.
You better be. That's right. You better be. You have to be. We want you to be. We want you to be the absolute best, and that's the best advice I can give to you to give to those airmen. You know, you're part of the best led, best equipped, best trained force that ever existed, which makes you the most lethal. Okay, as long as you do those things up front. So be the absolute best that you can be each and every day.
And to add, take pride. Take pride in what you do, and take pride in being the best, but also take pride in being part of the best team. You know, one of the things that, and I started out with one of the best trainers in the Air Force that I could imagine, a senior airman, Jeff Pelham, that was so motivational to me to help me be the best crew chief. And that's what he said, you listen to me, follow me, I want you to be the best. I took great pride in having the best airplane. At least I thought it was the best airplane there. And then that best airplane, that best fighter aircraft that was ready for that pilot to step to, turned in to be the best flight, the best squadron, the best group, the best wing, the best Air Force in the world, and being a part of that team and doing my part in that team. So that, I agree, be the best you can and take pride in that. But then not only make it just about you, make it about that team that you're a part of, and be able to be that motivator, that inspiration within the team to be able to help that team to be the best. You continue that attitude, and that'll take you absolutely through your career and your life and what you do.
I think if you go around trying to figure out how to leave things better than they were when you got there, at every stage, I mean, it could be as simple as picking up a towel in the bathroom as you walking out because someone didn't make the trash. But it could be something as simple as that. But when you go and try to figure out how to make things better for the organization so it's better than it was when you showed up, you will find, I suspect, that's contagious. And the people around you will watch you, and pretty soon they'll want to be you, and then they start doing this. And so I've gone to organizations, and you can tell right away that there's some leader and then a bunch of mini-me's. And so be that leader so you can have some mini-me's.
All right, thank you, Chief Bass. We'll start with closing comments for me.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a ton for your time. Thanks for being here. If I can just offer maybe a couple things, it's kind of a spin-off off that resiliency question that was asked. What I would say is, how many of y'all had family members who told you 4 years in the military never hurt anybody? Just a few of y'all. My dad told me that, and that's what made me join the Air Force. I'm actually still trying to figure out what 4 years he talked about, because all the 4 years hurt, and what it causes you to do is to become resilient, and resilience comes through reps and sets, but I'm a big fan of our resiliency framework of the social, spiritual, physical, and the mental. And so what I would say to each and every one of you is be unapologetic about taking care of yourself. There were probably about 23 years that I lived where I was a bit hypocritical, that I would tell my teammates to take care of themselves, but I didn't do the same. And so make sure that you're taking care of yourself physically, mentally, socially, spiritually, financially is huge. The other thing that I would say is, take care of each other. Like, your number one goal is to be a good wingman, good teammate to your folks. Make sure that you're taking care of your subordinates. Make sure you're taking care of your peers. Make sure you're taking care of your leaders. And then the last piece, it goes back to the first question that was asked about soft power and DOW's piece. And that what I would say is it goes back to control what you can control. And within the Department of War, like, our number one job is to make sure that we are a strong military and we are able to win. So at the end of the day, if you're doing your part by ensuring that you're competent and credible and taking care of your teammates, taking care of yourself, we'll be able to win. Hey, I look forward to seeing y'all for the rest of the time that I'm here. Keep crushing it in our Air Force and Space Force. We love y'all.
I'm going to use a Navy reference because it just sounds better. I acknowledge that no great sailor was made in calm seas, or however that goes, right? Life is tough. It's designed that way. It's helpful for us. It builds resilience and so on and so forth. But we all have a limit. And I think particularly for the leaders in the room, you have the ability to help calm some of the seas for the people in this room who are struggling with some of those other things. And I think, again, I'll say it for the third time, as a force, we have to do better, right? And, the last thing I'll say, for the people who are going through these difficult challenges, figure out who you are beyond the uniform, because we all get to a point, and it could be after 32 or however many years we all did up here, or it could be after 4 years or 8 years, when you have to decide, is this the best option for me to continue to serve, to continue to be in the Air Force, in the Space Force, or whatnot. And there's no dishonor in that if you serve for 1 term or 20 terms, right? I think we all have to make a decision, but I would encourage the leaders in the room to help calm those seas for the young folks who might be struggling with any number of the things that were mentioned in this room today. It's been a pleasure, as always, and hopefully we'll get more opportunities to talk during the time I'm here. So thank you.
Again, thank you for allowing us an opportunity to spend some time with you today. I like what Chief Bass said as far as taking care of yourself. It's something that we don't do very well. And, it's kind of multidimensional. It's physical, spiritual, mental. And you need to take care of yourself along the way. The other thing that I would add to that is you need to take care of your family as well. Sometimes we often forget, we have a peer on our side each and every day that sometimes we don't acknowledge as much as we should. We don't tell them thank you. We don't tell them we love you enough. And then along comes family members like little ones. You need to accept the responsibility of being the parent. If we look at the future of where we are as a nation, it's your responsibility not to just be that airman and that guardian, but it's your responsibility to be a good, solid parent as well. Be the solid parent along the way, and people will continue to look up to you. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to seeing you around our great Air Force and our great Space Force.
So I agree completely with the things that are said, and I do believe that in taking care of yourself, your health, and so I would repeat, our health is physical, mental, and spiritual, and you need to focus on each of those. I'll give you a little practical advice that I have to remind myself often. All of us have these things. There's a time to put these things down and put them away. And when you're dealing with people that you love, when you're dealing with people that you care with, and when you're communicating with people, if this thing is turned up or if this thing is picked up and everything, then you are not giving the attention to the people that you should be. So put these things away at times. And believe me, I have to remind myself of that often there, especially when I'm dealing with my loved ones. So do that. Be ready. The question was asked about readiness. My focus as Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, my focus through my career was about readiness. Be ready personally. Be ready to go. Be ready, as stated, to fly, fix, fight, and win. And make sure your unit is ready. Make sure your family is ready. Look, combat readiness is family readiness. And if the family is not ready, you're not ready. So make sure that your family is ready as well. And the last thing I will tell you is remember your purpose. Whether it's your purpose for your mission, your purpose for your life, your purpose for your family, remember, and first and foremost, is put the purpose of why you serve first. I'm like the others, and like Chief Wright, I don't ask people to stay in the Air Force, there, and I appreciate, if you do 1 term or if you do 30 plus years there. But while you're at it, while you're doing it, remember the purpose of why you are. And if you keep that purpose in front of you, then we'll continue to be the greatest Air Force and Air and Space Forces in the world. So thank you all, and it's a great pleasure to be with you.
As we said earlier, it's great to be with you, and every time we're around airmen and guardians, it always makes me feel comfortable, because I kind of know what to expect out of you and what you expect out of me, and so it's always fun to do that. Thanks to Keith, to Steve, to Chief Wolf, to the command chiefs that are here, and the strategic leaders for what you do, and for everyone here in the room. All the jobs that you will have while you're serving in our Air Force and Space Force, all those jobs are going to, along the way, move from organization to a new position somewhere else and continue to grow. And when you get into those positions, I think it's really important to figure out what lane, what the organization expects out of you, what your boss expects out of you. Find out what authorities that you have to operate and when you're decision making, what are the boundaries and the decisions that you get to make and what have to be funneled up to someone else to make. The other side of that is also which decisions should the people who work beneath you, what decisions should they make so that you're not working outside your lane. You're not making decisions that you handed something off to someone else, and even though you can do it better because you've had experience in it, you got to give people the confidence and the growth opportunities to make those decisions and then guide them along, because the best thing you can do is to grow it so that your organization continues to improve along the way. And lastly, I would say I hope you're having fun as you're doing this, because it's important to stay positive. Quite frankly, you want the people following you to want to be you. So if you're walking around telling everybody how your job sucks or how hard you have to do it or how much leave you've lost to do these things, no one's going to want to be you. So look about the things that draw in and get some fun out of all of this. Continue to make our Air Force and the Space Force a little bit better. And from the bottom of our hearts, Pat and for me, we thank you for making us part of your family and allowing us to participate and hang out with you guys. You guys rock.
We had a lot of discussion today about, staying in or getting out or making career decisions. And what I would tell leaders in this room is that when somebody comes to you and they're talking to you about a career decision, and they're at that fork in the road, that you need to pay attention to that. You need to listen and make sure that they have all the facts to consider whether they're going to stay in or not. Back in 1974, I had done my 4 years. I'd already been overseas. I'd been to Taiwan, Vietnam. I had 2 assignments back in the States. So I was listening to the barracks lawyers, and the barracks lawyers said, you need to get out. You don't want to be a lifer. You don't want to stay in this prison that you're in, and all of this stuff. And there was a lot of bad things said about the Air Force back then. Middle of the Vietnam War, a lot of dissatisfaction in America, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people were drafted. They didn't want to be in the military. So a different environment. But an old chief, I was getting ready to get out. I was going to go back up to my hometown and probably wind up working in a factory or something like that. And an old chief sat me down and he asked me, do I like wearing a uniform? Do I like the mission? Do I like the people that I served with? And when we had that conversation about those 3 things, I realized that I was part of a family, that I was in an institution that cared about me and cared about what I did. So take those questions when somebody comes to you as a young person like we had here today, and they ask you that question, should I stay or should I go? Just make sure they have all the facts. What they decide to do is in their heart and where they want to go with it. But just make sure they have all the facts and they really consider the institution that they're in and the value of this proposition that we call the United States Air Force. Special thanks to Keith and the Air Force Sergeant Association and the great work that they do to take care of your benefits, your entitlements, and your compensation and all of that. Their lobbying efforts, I can assure you, over the years have done marvelous things for our entitlements and our compensation. So thanks for everything, Keith.
A couple of favors, please. Senior member of our group can't be here. CMSAF number 8, Sam Parrish. So if you could keep him in your thoughts and prayers. He just recently lost his wife, Inga, of more than 60 years. And so keep Sam in your prayers. He wishes he could be here, and I would know he would be a great addition to our panel anytime. Second favor, consider, if you're not a member of the Air Force Sergeant Association, joining. We need that. The number of voices make a difference, and like I said, this is a key and critical time for the members of our armed forces. And remember, AFSA is the Air Force Sergeants Association, but it serves and works for all military people, officer, enlisted, and all people of all branches of the armed forces of the United States. So membership makes a difference. I'm going to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Eric said about decisions and service and family. And there's no denying that it's extremely hard today. But there's also no denying that hundreds of millions of Americans are in the same situation. Regardless of where you are and what you do, if you have issues paying the rent or paying for groceries or trying to decide how you help out family members, those decisions are not decisions that are just solely for military people. They're for millions of Americans. The difference is you are the envy of the world. You are role models, not just for one another, but for those Americans that struggle every day. So continue to do the Lord's work, rely on one another, and stay together, because the biggest threat to our nation is not that which is from other countries, but it's from within. And as long as we stick together, work together, we talked a lot about teamwork, you will make a difference, not just for the United States of America, but from people of the world who also envy your service. God bless you all. Peace be with you. And look forward to talking with you in the next couple of days.
Please stand and help me give a loud and welcoming round of applause for our chiefs.